Our chalice lighting words this morning are from the Reverend Ken Patton. Let us worship with our eyes and ears and fingertips. Let us love the world through heart and mind and body. We feed our eyes upon the mystery and revelation in the faces of our brothers and sisters. We seek to know the wistfulness of the very young and the very old, the wistfulness of all people in all times of life. We seek to understand the shyness behind arrogance, the fear behind pride, the tenderness behind clumsy strength, the anguish behind cruelty. All life flows into a common life if we will only open our eyes to our companions. Let us worship not in bowing down, not with closed eyes and stopped ears. Let us worship with the opening of all the windows of our beings, with the full outstretching of our spirits. Life comes with singing and laughter, with tears and confiding, with a rising wave too great to be held in the mind and heart and body to those who have fallen in love with life. Let us worship and let us learn to love. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln on this Sunday morning. My name is the Reverend Oscar Sinclair. Over the last several years, the way we have met has often changed. But whether in person, on Zoom, on a YouTube live stream, on YouTube but recorded a week earlier, or some way of being that we cannot yet imagine, worship together is a chance to deepen our connection with the sources of meaning in our lives, and to proclaim who we are and what we are about. We worship with the opening of all the windows of our beings, Ken Patton writes, with the full outstretching of our spirits. Every time we gather, we proclaim the radical love and welcome that is at the heart of this community. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln, we say, aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason and spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and transform the world. Welcome to this loving community. May we, in our gathering here, be about that work of transformation. Our opening hymn is from Mark Miller, Draw the Circle Wide.
Our story today is called 100,000 Welcomes by Mary Lee Donovan. There are almost as many ways of making someone feel welcome as there are people on this planet. To welcome another is to give that person and yourself a chance at a new connection, a new friendship, and maybe even new eyes through which to view the world. Just as there are many customs for extending hospitality to others, there are thousands of ways to say welcome too. The call to welcome the stranger and to offer peace and refuge, aman, to those in danger, is deeply rooted in ancient traditions and in all major religions. The truth is that we are all migrants on this earth, journeying together in hope. In one place or another, at one time or another, in one way or another, every single one of us will find ourselves in search of acceptance, help, protection, welcome. Welcome, friend. Welcome. Dear neighbor, come in. No stranger dwells here. I greet you as kin. The door is wide open. Come in from the storm. We'll shelter in peace, break bread where it's warm. Hello and how are yous, ancient and young, I bow to your spirit. Salamat datang. Alein we se halen. Bienvenida. He wen ying. I greet you in sunshine or by light of the moon. My house is your house, O most honored guest. Yokoso, Shagoto. May our meeting be blessed. Water to drink, to wash dust from your feet, bread and salt, honey, our fellowship feast. Tell me your stories, sing me your songs. Life has more flavor since you came along. Willkommen, Svaget, Kush, Amdid. Amen is here, where the lanterns are lit. Tenyen Haipi, or Selam Birim. In any language, welcome without end. Sied mil felte, this blessing I give. Ked mele falce, may you never know hunger. May peace fill your nights. May your children's children grow strong in the light. May the road rise to meet you and walls fall away. 100,000 welcomes. I sing, I sign, I pray. And that is the end of our story. Please join in singing hymn number 300 with heart and mind.
A central part of our services is the time that we join together as a community to mark the moments of our lives. We share with one another our joys, our sorrows, and the events that mark steps on our journey. The threads of sorrow and those of joy are intertwined in the fabric of our lives, present for all, remembered by all. We share those threads, and then they are woven together with those of the rest of this community. Our joys are shared and magnified. We are comforted in our sorrows. As the next hymn plays, I invite you to type into the chat your name or the name of another you wish to be remembered, either in joy or in sorrow. Each week, we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we all grow from our participation in this community, from the welcome that we have received here, we each give back through our time, our talent, and our treasure. To give, you can text UC Lincoln and the amount you wish to give to 73256. That's UC Lincoln and the amount that you wish to give to 73256. The offering will now be gratefully received. This is a remixed version of a sermon that I preached almost 5 years ago. One of the first sermons I preached here from this pulpit after moving to Lincoln. We're hearing it again this morning in pre-recorded fashion because I have been out of town this week. Over the last few days, I've been attending the National Clergy Conference for the Direct Action Research and Training Center, DART, learning about how networks of congregations in communities across the country have organized to create meaningful change. If you remember, a few months ago, Ben McConnell came to talk about community organizing here in this congregation, about some of the work that we are doing in Lincoln. This conference was a continuation of that work. As we begin that process in Lincoln, we We want to be connected with other places across the country who have done similar work. And unlike many things in the last month, this conference was not canceled or moved online due to COVID. Community organizing work is hard to do over Zoom. There is a benefit to doing it in person. So I flew back to Lincoln on Saturday night, but out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to work from home for a few days, monitoring to see if there are any post-travel symptoms. As a practical matter, that means that I am recording this sermon on Sunday afternoon, January 30th, right after our church service this morning. I have switched stoles so you can tell it's a different day, but Linda and Roger have graciously offered to stay in the AV cart and help record this. Also, rather than write 2 sermons in 1 week, I went back to see if I've said anything before on the topic of welcome, which is our theme for the month of February. So this was, I believe, either my second or third sermon in Lincoln. Stacy and I visited Lincoln for the first time in May of 2017. I was coming out here to meet with the search committee, to interview in person, to see the church preach at a neutral pulpit, all that. It was a weekend for everyone involved, the search committee, me, Stacy, to get a sense of whether Lincoln was the right fit and if we were the right fit for Lincoln. The conversation on the flight out from LaGuardia to Lincoln was memorable. A whole 48 hours before we got on the plane, Stacy called to tell me that she was pregnant. The appointment with her doctor was at 7 o'clock in the morning. I had worked late at a committee meeting at the congregation I was at the night before, so she actually woke me up with the call. There are, I am sure, morning people in this congregation. I have learned that, actually, since I wrote this sermon. There are morning people in this congregation. Bless you. I am not one of you. In the moment, being woken up with this momentous news, all I could get out was, wow. So this is going to be a big week for us then. The flight out to Lincoln was the first opportunity Stacy and I had to really talk about what that news meant for us. And the conversation was, of course, colored by what we were doing, what it might mean to start a family in Nebraska, far from family and friends, how we might mitigate the almost certain trauma of being a preacher's kid. As we were coming into land, the first sight of Lincoln we caught through the clouds was of a giant football stadium. I joked that our child might be a little cornhusker, a niblet. At dinner that night, I met the search committee in person for the first time. It was a rainy and cold night, unseasonably so. But the food was good. An honest surprise for us Easterners. And the company warm. As we left, the search committee lent Stacy a sweater and handed us a bag of Nebraska goodies to welcome us. At the bottom of the bag was a mixtape with songs the committee felt presented this congregation and this town. We walked back to the hotel that night talking about the home that we might have here. And we know how this story ends. Stacy and I ended up moving out to Lincoln. I'm standing here on a Sunday morning, and that niblet is a very, very talkative preschooler. If I were to put together a mixtape for Lincoln, songs that have been important to me or that I hope describe who I am or what my aspirations are, Draw the Circle Wide would be one of the first tracks We sang it this morning. We actually sang it at my ordination a year after that story. Mark Miller wrote it about a decade ago, and in that time, it's become a well-loved hymn in progressive Christian circles, including at Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C. It's sung almost every commencement ceremony there. It's an important song to me because it was so often sung at my alma mater, but also because it was an entry point for my theology to meet that of the institution. We Unitarian Universalists know about drawing the circle wide. We talk about being welcoming congregations. While I didn't know it when I applied, the practice of radical hospitality was also central to how Wesley sees its mission and the kind of minister they hope to train. New students in my cohort were welcomed to Wesley by a reading from Genesis. The reading was repeated often enough that if you mention the Oaks of Mamre to somebody who graduated from Wesley Theological sometime in the 21st century, you'll get either a rueful chuckle or a sermon. The passage goes like this. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the Oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I have found favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourself under the tree. Let me bring a little bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and took it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. It's a story about hospitality. Before asking who the strangers are or what they want, Abraham gives them water, good food, and a place to rest from their travels. He does this not seeking a reward, though in the story the strangers turn out to be angels, blessing his family with a child. But he does it because welcome is what you do in the desert, in the heat of the day. Welcome the stranger, because we were all strangers once and likely will be again. I learned that story in a distinctly non-UU setting. But there is a connection to Unitarian Universalism. We sometimes talk about different faiths having different gifts, things that are central to their practice or theology. In Judaism, this is tradition. In the Methodist faith, it is music. In Roman Catholicism, it is ritual. I think for Unitarian Universalists, it is our sense of welcome, our not being tied to the way that we've always done things, and so by doing so, being willing to welcome in new people and new experiences. As is obvious at this point, I am no longer in the sanctuary on Sunday morning. It is actually Monday morning, right before I fly out. There's a problem with the recording, so I'm doing the second half of the sermon in my sweatshirt for traveling, which I haven't done before. But I am practicing what we preach about imperfection and doing things differently. Anyway, welcome is what is best known about Unitarian Universalism. It's what we are known for outside our walls. It's possible, maybe, to name social justice as what we are most known for, but I would argue that actually most of our social justice work comes out of our commitment to radical hospitality, comes out of our understanding of welcoming in everybody. Here, We say that you are welcome, whoever you are, whatever your age, whatever your skin color, whatever your gifts, whomever you love, you are welcome in the full existence of your humanity. All of who you are is welcome. This is the story we tell ourselves as a denomination, and we fall short of living up to it sometimes, but it is the aspiration that guides us. This is the logical endpoint of joining universalist theology that all are beloved by God, with the Unitarian commitment to living ethically in this life. You take those two things, you end up that all are beloved and we should act that way in this life. So if radical hospitality is one of the hallmarks of Unitarian Universalism as a whole, what then is the story that we tell about ourselves in this place? What is the sense of welcome at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln? I can't even pretend to be unbiased in answering this question, because I have often been a recipient of that welcome. I and my wife have been welcomed to Lincoln over the last 5 years beyond what we could have dreamed. You know, from mixtapes and sweatshirts, when we were interviewing, to folks showing up with food, and our emeritus minister showing up at the hospital when Ailish was born early, to a staff and congregation ready and excited to work together to create whatever the next chapter will be at this church. Back in candidating, there were 4 potlucks in 3 days. This is a welcoming place. It has been for me. So I cannot pretend to be unbiased, but there are other parts in the life, other places in the life of the congregation where we've seen hands of welcome extended. The building is for the most part accessible. Across the hall from my office, right over there, is an elevator shaft to be fully ADA accessible. Now there isn't an elevator there yet, but the space was built to add one in the future. The building also has a restroom without a gender assignment and a shower, 2 things that might not mean much until you need them, might not be obviously connected to welcome until they are, at which point they mean everything. And the building is just a building without people in it. But here too, in the people, I see a spirit of hospitality worth mentioning. You know, in the original version of this sermon that I gave 5 years ago, I told a story about my first week here. My first week, as I was moving into this office, I got a phone call that there was a Dakota Access Pipeline protest happening, and that we were going to host a whole lot of Unitarians from a couple different states to stay here as they came to protest. And we did. People showed up with food. The Red Grail showed up with lawn games for kids. It was an incredible introduction to what this congregation looks like when it's activated. But more recently, even in the last few months, this fall we were approached by Lutheran World Relief to ask if we would consider as a congregation sponsoring a refugee family coming from Afghanistan. And I've got to be honest here, my first response was that's a worthy project and one that I do not have the capacity to take on right now. Between pandemic ministry and the priorities that we were already working on, and my own work, I said I can't take the lead on that. And then it went to the program council of this church, and the congregation took a lead on it. It was incredible to ask. All of a sudden, there was an ask for furniture, and furniture started showing up. there was an ask for a storage room, and suddenly we were storing things in a couple garages and in a storage unit somewhere in Lincoln as we kept accumulating more and more donations. Then Stranger Share a Fire came and folks donated more and said, maybe the family doesn't just want donated furniture and clothing. Maybe they want to pick out their own stuff. So you started donating money and gift cards. And then a couple weeks before they moved in, a call went out that there's a baby coming, and all of a sudden we were deluged with everything that you need for a nursery for a young child. And then the congregation came out to help set that apartment up. It was a moment like that Oaks of Mamre story, right? Where you say, rest a while, let me get you bread and water, and then all of a sudden, cakes start showing up. That's what radical hospitality can look like. Radical hospitality is not an easy thing. Being truly welcoming asks a lot of us. Because that might be as straightforward as giving our Saturday night to welcome guests to our building, or giving up our garage for a couple weeks to collect furniture in, or picking up a striped mug at coffee hour when we have coffee hour in person. But it also might ask us to consider and reconsider traditions that may be well loved by those of us on the inside, but not welcoming for new folks coming in. And this is all the more important now, this message of welcome and radical hospitality, because there has been so much disconnection in the last 2 years. We need to figure out how to welcome each other and ourselves in this space. We need to remember, quite literally, we need to become members again of this congregation and embrace the relationships that we have here and the relationships that we have not yet formed here but will. This world can be a lonely place. I am recording this sermon alone, I think, in the building, staring into a camera lens. We have learned in the last couple of years that this is a lonely place. We live in an age of anxiety, a world where a fair number of our day-to-day interactions are not face-to-face, but mediated through a 3x5 piece of glass and plastic, or a Zoom screen, or a lens. All of these things, these miracles of technology, are also disconnecting, also bring us at some remove away from the practice of hospitality. So radical hospitality aims to break through that alienation, to make the world a little less lonely, to provide not just a home away from home, but a place, a community, where people feel loved for who they are, a place where the stranger is welcomed in, to then welcome those coming in behind them. Sometimes we do that in the building. Often we do that in the building. And one of the challenges of this moment is also how to do it like this. How to do it through screens and lenses and glass and plastic. But even though we are so often through lenses and glass and plastic these days, it's still, this sense of welcome is still what I see here. I see in this community. But I hope we continue to grow and deepen as we move forward together. That mixtape that the search committee gave me in the Haymarket, we were at, I can't remember what restaurant we were at. We were at Lead Bellies that first night. There we go. We listened to the mixtape in our hotel room the first night we were in Lincoln. And the last song on that tape was an anthem written for this congregation on the occasion of the rededication of this building. Its title was Love, Come Take Me Home. And that will be our closing hymn. Amen and blessed be. Well, as we close our time together this morning, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for welcoming each other to this community and to welcoming all of those who will come in the coming weeks and months and years. I look forward to being in person soon. As I record this, there's some positive news, and hopefully I will have traveled and be back, and that will go smoothly. Otherwise, have a lovely week. Be well, everybody, and go in peace. Amen.